Remember, my excellent drivers, you are responsible for the safe use of your vehicle and abiding by the state or territory rules that you are driving in, and that, of course, includes mobile phone usage.
Hello, my lovely learners and listeners. Welcome to another episode of The Art of Confident Driving. Today we're going to talk about what controls we need to know before getting behind the wheel of a car we've never sat in before. All right, so I don't know what's been happening this week, but I've actually had 5 students in 1 week forget to put their seatbelt on. Now, truthfully, that happens, so rarely these days. Maybe once every 3 to 4 weeks it will happen, but it's not that often. So most of my students, the first thing they do is pop that seatbelt on. So today I wanted to talk about when we're getting into a car, what is our little checklist? What is our pre-flight checklist? Just like those pilots do when they're behind the controls of their big airplane, we're behind the controls of a vehicle. So we do need to know quite a few of them. And of course, starting with the seatbelt. Okay. So a lot of cars, they will notify you straight away if your seatbelt isn't on. But there are some cars that won't let you know until you're over a certain kilometre per hour. So sometimes it's 15, sometimes it's 20, and that's when they'll start dinging. So that's the first thing we do when we sit behind the wheel is, of course, put our seatbelts on, okay? The next thing, we've got to identify some certain things. Now, I've been in and out of cars for many, many years now, and all different types of cars, and I've even jumped into the driver's seat of my student's car to demonstrate something for them. So I've had to control a lot of different cars over a lot of years. And the first thing I do when I get behind the wheel, even though I'm talking to my student and I'm teaching them, before I take off, the first thing I do is identify a few certain very important controls, okay? So let's start with those controls now. First of all, indicators. I know it seems obvious, but I've had many students, especially raw beginners, get into the car, and when I ask them to identify the indicators, they'll think one is one arm of the wheel. In other words, that right arm would be the right indicator, and the arm off to the left is the left indicator. So there can often be confusion. Obviously, that's not the case. So again, this is why I get them to play with the indicators. Have a play, I say. Find out how they work. So identify your indicators first of all. Next thing you want to do is, of course, identify your wipers. What happens if it rains? You don't want to be driving in a new car and going, where are my wipers? So they're 2 very important things to identify. A few more important things, and yes, some of these are actually required knowledge for the test. So it would be a very good idea that you know where everything is. So the next ones we're looking for are your outside mirrors. What if you need to adjust your outside mirrors? How do I do that? Now, a lot of the time, the controllers are actually on the driver's door arm. So it's on the driver's door, same place as the electric windows. It's usually in that area somewhere, okay? And again, windows, it's kind of nice to know those. So you want to identify those as well. All right, the next things we want to be thinking about after our mirrors and our windows are, of course, our gears. Now, most of the time, the gears will be in that center console next to your leg, but not always. Okay, sometimes the gears these days can be a dial. Sometimes there can be a very old-fashioned car and there'll be an arm off the wheel. So again, it's up to you as the driver to, whenever you get behind a new vehicle, identify all of these things. Where's your handbrake or park brake, whatever you want to call it? Where is that? Now, in the newer cars, a lot of them, they don't actually have it separate. It's automatically applied when you hit park. But most other cars, they've got a separate park brake. Now, some cars have got it next to you, just down from the gears. Some of them are on the floor and you need to push it with your foot. So you need to, again, find out where that park brake is. All right, some other things we need to know. Where are our hazard lights? So if something does go wrong, we need to notify the other cars around us. That's what hazard lights are. So please, the first thing you're looking for is something that looks like a hazard. It literally looks like a warning. So you need to look around your dash somewhere to find it. Now, speaking of dash, a lot of people utterly ignore the dashboard on the car, which is crazy. I know you're all happily watching the speedo, which, we shouldn't be staring at it. Remember that, please. We need to understand what is in front of us is the most important part of driving. So our dashboard is the most important part. It tells us everything we need to know about what's happening with our vehicle and if we need to attend to a problem, all right? So when you're starting up that car, that new car that you've never driven before, don't take off straight away. Have a check out and see what's on the dashboard, see the layout of it, and more importantly, notice if there are any warning signs that are still on once the engine has started. Okay, the only red light that should be on should be your park brake. Okay, any other red lights, that could be a problem and you'd need to find out what is that issue. So all of these things are things that you want to do before taking off. Again, when we rush, we make big mistakes. So please take your time. So whether it's you getting into a brand new car that you've just bought yourself, lucky you, well done. Or whether you're driving home a friend who said, please, I can't drive, I've had a few too many to drink, can you please drive my car? You need to get behind that wheel and not take off straight away. You need to find where everything is, find where the important controls are, and know how to use them. Couple of other important controls that you might want to know about. Where are your front and rear demisters? You're probably going, what's a demister? Okay, so for those of you who don't know what a demister is, it's the same principle as when you're having a shower and the mirror in the bathroom fogs up. You turn on the wall switch, the extraction fan, to get rid of all that mist that's on the mirror, right? So the same thing will happen if it's raining. Our car's windscreen and rear windscreen and probably side windows as well are going to fog up if we're not using our air correctly. So that's the other point. You need to know also where your air conditioner is, where your fan is, all of those controls you want to know. So there's your hint to look for your front and rear demisters. Okay, they are in your air conditioning control area. All right, so remembering when we get behind the wheel of a car, we're not in any rush. We want to stay calm, do things methodically and with procedure so that we're not rushing, we're not missing anything, and we're not going to scare ourselves in our lovely new drive. So remembering when we get behind the wheel, belt on first, okay? Please belt on, and please make sure all of your passengers are belted. As the driver, you are responsible for them as well, okay? So belt on, check out your dash, check out your indicators, wipers, gears, park brake, mirrors, and then calmly say, okay, let's go for that lovely drive. All right, guys, stay safe, be smart, be cool, be calm, collected, and relax and enjoy the drive. I'll catch you next time. And my full driving lessons are available on Apple Podcasts and the artofconfidentdriving.com website, where you will get access to instructional videos. Remember to relax and enjoy the drive. See you next time.